Hey everyone, it's Elaine. In today's video, I want to talk about something that is a very touchy and controversial topic. Um, I want to preface by saying that I grew up in the Iglesia Cristo. I left in my early 20s and I've been on my healing journey since then. I'm going to be in my mid-30s soon. I graduated from San Diego State University with a master's degree in education with a concentration in counseling, and I do have a background in trauma-informed care. I'm currently in school to obtain my associate clinical counseling degree, and I want to focus and specialize in religious trauma, domestic violence, internalized oppression, anxiety and depression. I also want to specialize in other areas as well, but those are like the main ones that I want to specialize in when I do graduate. So in this video, I'm going to talk about being a member of the Iglesia Ni Cristo cult and dating non-members. Now, I know my audience is mixed. I know I have random people that watch my videos, and I know that I have members that have left and are healing. And then I know I have members that are like, on the far end of the spectrum where they are really devout and they take pride in their membership. I have people that watch my videos that have been ex-ministers. There's just an array and a variety of people that have been connected to the INC in some way or another that watch my videos. So I just want to give note to that. And also, I want to kind of delve into this topic because I feel like it's one of the main things that people have questions about, and one of the main doctrines that causes a lot of problems, a lot of issues within families and within themselves internally, like that internal turmoil that someone may experience when they're dating, when they are like a non-member and they're dating their partner, or if the person is in the church and dating a non-member, which happened to me. So I was in the church. I met my first serious boyfriend when I was 19 and he was Catholic, and that caused a lot of issues. And when I left the church, and that's when I first experienced my first major depressive disorder episode. So the main tenets of the Iglesia Ni Cristo is do not be unequally yoked. What is it? Do not be unequally yoked. I think that's what it is. I'm not going to pull up the Bible right now. But that's like, do not be unequally yoked with a non-member. And that's like what they use that phrase to implement the rule of you cannot marry a non-member, which causes a lot of frustration for a lot of people because when that rule is ingrained in you since doctrination, since you were born, since you were a child, you start to believe that that is your reality. You cannot date a non-member. And for my experience, it caused a lot of issues with me because I'm like, I don't understand why like we can't be together. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Like I mentioned in my previous videos, right? So now that I've been out of the cult for almost a decade, guys, it's been almost a decade since I've been out of the cult, 10 years, and I'm just starting to like heal, and it's been a long journey, but I'm really proud of myself, and I'm proud of everyone else too that has left and is making a new life for themselves, whatever lifestyle that, makes them happy. So, back to my story, that tenet of do not be unequally yoked, and then the ministers or whoever, the church administration, creates that rule from that tenet that you cannot marry a non-member, and it causes a lot of issues. And I know for some people, I know some person commented that they're in the church because their wife is in it and they just go because their wife is in it. A lot of people do that to avoid conflict. Not to say that's a bad thing, to to come to a compromise. Some people, that's a better way to say it, will marry the person that's in the church to appease them, to make them, just kind of come to a commitment. But where it causes a lot of conflict is when you have two opposing people and they're so strong in their outlook. So like one is a really strong devout member, and then the other one is like maybe he's like a Catholic, but he doesn't go to church all the time. And she's trying to like convince him. He's like, oh no, no, you need to be in the church, come to church. Like, and then and he's like, I don't really like the doctrines or this and that. And she's like, oh well, and then that's when a lot of conflict and problems can arise. And that happens a lot in a lot of situations. And it's unfortunate because I feel like a lot of people meet their soulmate or one of their soulmates, and then because of this doctrine people split up because of it, and what could have been the one was impeded by this doctrine that the Iglesia Cristo is so adamant about. Like, you cannot date or marry a non-member, or it's highly discouraged to date a non-member, but if you are, you need to convert them. But it's highly like prohibited to marry a non-member, otherwise there's going to be serious implications both on earth and you're going to lose your membership, and then you're not going to attain you're not going to go to heaven. So with that being said, I wanted to share my screen and show you guys some theoretical concepts that may kind of introduce you to new concepts so that you can take this information and really think about and sit on it if you're experiencing this, to maybe look at things in a different light so you can make your own decision about how you want to live your life, especially if you're experiencing or in this predicament. And let me go ahead. Okay. So I like to always reference other people's work because it gives a foundation of, like resources and empirical evidence that has been studied from people that have PhDs, or, that have really have studied, religious trauma and religious fundamentalism and cognitive distortions, which I talked about in one of my other videos, which is it's a distorted way of viewing the world. So I want to reference this man's work first. So this work that I'm about to reference is from William F. Doverspike, and he has a PhD, and his article that he wrote is on how cognitive distortions affect religious fundamentalists. So fundamentalism is like, if you don't really know what fundamentalism was, because I wasn't aware of this term until I started seeing a therapist and kind of unpacking my religious trauma, and then she introduced me to this term. I did my own research on it. Basically, fundamentalism is when there are a set of rigid rules that is usually introduced from a church, and there's you can't deviate from those rules. You can't question those rules. Those rules are absolute. You stick to those rules. There's no deviation. So, there's no deviation from you cannot marry a non-member because it's absolute, and you can't, compromise with the minister. You can't compromise with the church administration. There's no gray area. So what term I wanted to discuss in relation to the tenet that you can't marry a non-member is, and I really like the way his article lays out all of the components of religious fundamentalism. Okay, proof texting. And a lot of religious cults, like the one I grew up in, a lot of the clergy or the ministers will proof text. So what that means is they will use selective quotes from, a Bible, or yeah, so let's take, for example, that tenet of do not be unequally yoked, right? And let's just go over this definition. Proof texting, which is also called proof texting, refers to the process of using selective quotes from a document in order to prove one's attitudes or beliefs. Okay. Proof texting is the practice of using isolated, out of context quotations from a document to establish a proposition. Okay, so whoever created the rule that you can't marry a non-member used that unequally yoked quote, and then in their attitude, in their mind, created the rule that you cannot marry a non-member. And why I think this is so important is because people can make up their own rules according to what, they are reading from, the Bible. And I'm going to connect it to history right now. In the United States, interracial marriage was forbidden in a lot of states. A lot of churches in the American South, where slavery was very prominent, where racism was really prominent, a lot of the pastors or the religious clergy in, Christian churches, before the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s took place, they would use that unequally yoked quote to prove that you cannot marry a Black person or a person of color. Otherwise, you're not going to receive salvation. You're not going to go to heaven. And it was forbidden. And this article, What Does the Bible Say About Interracial Marriages, kind of talks about that, how churches, it says here, in the American South, sermons and tracts against interracial marriage were common. So a lot of churches, like I said, would proof text to cater to their own attitudes and beliefs. So a lot of people in the South didn't believe that Black people and white people should marry, right? So a lot of what these churches did is they took scripture and excerpts from that Bible to cater to their own beliefs and to create rules. You cannot marry a Black person. I'm so sorry. They use that unequally yoked quote. And that causes a lot of issues. And it was finally eradicated, the law in the Supreme Court in the United States finally struck down the Virginia law against interracial marriage, because there were actually laws that prohibited people from marrying Black people, or people of color, I should say. So that's very similar to what the Iglesia ni Cristo. I'm just using this as a comparison, and you can make up your own. You can sit on this information and really analyze it and interpret it yourself and make an informed decision about how you want to live your life, or if you're in this predicament, to kind of unravel and deconstruct what you've been taught. Because let's take, for example, the people in that church who heard messages about interracial marriage. They're like, oh my God, you cannot date a Black person. Like, you just can't date a Black person, because my pastor in my church in the American South said interracial marriage is bad. They probably heard it every sermon during that time frame. So now we take it back to the Iglesia ni Cristo and that tenet and that doctrine that you cannot date, oh, you cannot marry a non-member. It's very similar. There's a lot of parallels there. So when you compare that, it kind of puts things into context about that rule. And that rule creates a lot of issues. So if there was more flexibility with that rule, like, let's just say, for example, that the Iglesia ni Cristo said, you can still have your membership and marry this person. You can still do that. Both of you can still attend. He doesn't have to convert and go through the whole indoctrination process. You can still have your membership, sister or brother. They can come along whenever they want. There's no flexibility at all. And that's why it causes a lot of issues. That's why it caused a lot of issues for me and my previous partner. So something to think about. I think this topic is super, super important. I really wanted to divulge this and really talk about this, because I think a lot of people struggle with it. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. If you ever want to meet through Zoom and have a conversation about what you're experiencing, you're more than welcome to. I'll leave my email in the comment section. I'm not the comment section, like the description box, but I just wanted to reference these articles. So the first one that I referenced, sorry, I was watching something earlier about cults, but yeah, That first one that I referenced, if you're interested in it, I'll leave that, article from that doctor in my description so that you can do your own, research. I hope this was helpful. I hope it kinda, like, made you think about things in a new light so that you can live the life that you wanna live, and I know that's and I know that I say that so easily, but I know that there are some people in the church that can't easily leave because there's a lot of factors that are involved. Everyone's case is different. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone's situation and life experiences are going to be different. So I know in those instances where there are family members that are very abusive physically and emotionally towards those people that want to marry a non-member, I know how difficult it is and I know how tough that situation is. So I don't wanna diminish your experience by saying, "Yeah, just leave, it's that easy," because it's not easy. It's really not. So I really hope that you guys can take away something from this. I think it's super important to shed light on, and I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.